Hey guys, it's Whisperbell. I haven't done a video in a while, as you know. Life gets in the way, just what happens. So I thought I would do a fun little reading of a book. Fun little fact about me. I am actually an English major, so I absolutely love to read and write, and I especially love reading classic literature. Like one of my favorite stories is, the Odyssey and the Iliad and all that stuff. I love Greek mythology and I love original stories. And this is actually the original story of Beauty and the Beast. It's by Madame de Villeneuve, or Gabrielle Suzanne Barbeau de Villeneuve. She's a French author, and I lost my train of thought. Anyway, she's a French author, and this is where the Disney version that we all know and love actually came from. However, it is quite different from the original version. This was published in 1740, and it's quite good. I've read through it a couple of times, and it's pretty good. But like I said, it's much different, obviously, from the cover. So this is also going to be an unedited video because I much enjoy seeing an artist's personality come out in their videos. I think you really get to know the ASMR artists a lot that way. Some of my favorite videos are just unedited, unfiltered videos. So this still smells like new book, and I actually kind of love it, but my favorite smell is old books. Like if you ever go into a bookstore and it just fills you up, So, like I said, this is the unabridged version of The Beauty and the Beast. It's translated by J.R. Blanche. I'm gonna go with Blanchet because there's an accent over the E. And it was adapted by Rachel Louise Lawrence. So, without further ado, here is Madame de Villeneuve's The Beauty and the Beast. For those of you who speak French, it's also known as La Belle et la Bête. I think that's how you pronounce it. Anyways, so this is going to be a part of a series. I know I said without further ado, I just have some things to explain. This is going to be part of a series where I just read chapters from this book. Tonight, all we're going to read is chapter 1 because I've got this whole introduction thing going on. And some of the chapters get really long after chapter 1. Anyways, but it's going to be a series. I'm going to read this whole book to you, just not all in the same video, because that would be a very long video. And I haven't been on YouTube long enough for that. So, I'm just going to read chapter 1. And if you have any other books that you want to request me to read, comment down below. If you have any suggestions for books just for me to read in general, totally all over it. Really into fantasy books, and like I said, classic literature is also a good one. So, now, without further ado, I give you the story of The Beauty and the Beast, the original. Chapter 1, A Tempest at Sea. In a country very far from this is to be seen a great city wherein trade flourishes abundantly. It numbered amongst its citizens a merchant who succeeded in all his speculations in none of them was settled in life. The boys were too young to think of it. The girls, too proud of their fortunes, upon which they had every reason to count, could not easily determine upon the choice they should make. Their vanity was flattered by the attention of the handsomest young gentleman. However, a reverse of fortune, which they did not at all expect, came to trouble their felicity. Their house took fire. The splendid furniture with which it was filled, the account books, the notes, gold, silver, and all the valuable stores which formed the merchant's principal wealth, were enveloped in this fatal conflagration, which was so violent that very few of the things could be saved. This misfortune was but the forerunner of others. The father, with whom hitherto everything had prospered, lost at the same time, either by shipwreck or by pirates, all the ships he had at sea. His correspondence made him a bankrupt. His foreign agents were treacherous. In short, from the greatest opulence, he suddenly fell into the most abject poverty. He had nothing left but a small country house, situated in a lonely place, more than 100 leagues from the city in which he usually resided. Impelled to seek a place of refuge from noise and tumult, he took his family to this retired spot, who were in despair at such a revolution. The daughters of this unfortunate merchant were especially horrified at the prospect of the life they should have to lead in this dull solitude. For some time, they flattered themselves that, when their father's intention became known, their lovers, who had hitherto sued in vain, would be only too happy to find they were inclined to listen to them. They imagined that the many admirers of each would be all striving to obtain the preference. They thought if they wished only for a husband, they would obtain one. But they did not remain very long in such a delightful illusion. They had lost their greatest attractions when, like a flash of lightning, their father's splendid fortune had disappeared, and their time for choosing had departed with it. The crowd of admirers vanished the moment of their downfall. Their beauty was not sufficiently powerful to retain one of them. Their friends were not more generous than their lovers. From the hour they became poor, everyone, without exception, ceased to know them. Some were even cruel enough to impute their misfortunes to their own acts. Those whom the father had most obliged were his most vehement calumniators. Those whom the father had most obliged were his most vehement calumniators. They reported that all his calamities were brought on by his own bad conduct, his prodigality, and the foolish extravagance of himself and his children. I've read this book before, and I want to know where the mom is in all of this. Like, it has no mention of a mom anywhere in this story, except, like, towards the end. But it's not for this family. It's just the 12 kids and the dad. I want to know where she is, you know? Like, did he adopt all these kids? Is he asexual? We'll know if he was asexual, and they just kind of off of him, they would all be male. Anywho, this wretched family, therefore, could not do better than depart from a city wherein everybody took a pleasure in insulting them in their misfortunes. Having no resource whatsoever, they shut themselves up in their country house, situated in the middle of an almost impenetrable forest, and which might well be considered the saddest abode in the world. What misery they had to endure in this frightful solitude! They were forced to do the hardest work, not being able to have anyone to wait upon them. This unfortunate merchant's sons were compelled to divide the servants' duties amongst them, as well as to exert themselves in every way that people must do who have to earn their livelihood in the country. Excuse me. The daughters, on their part, had sufficient employment. Like the poor peasant girls, they found themselves obliged to employ their delicate hands in all the labors of a rural life, wearing nothing, second to compose myself. Wearing nothing but woolen dresses, having nothing to gratify their vanity, existing upon what the land could give them, limited to common necessaries, yet still retaining a refined and dainty taste. These girls incessantly regretted the city and its attractions. The recollection even of their younger days, passed so rapidly in a round of mirth and pleasure, was their greatest torment. The youngest girl, however, displayed greater perseverance and firmness in their common misfortune. She had bore her lot cheerfully, and with strength of mind much beyond her years. Not but what, at first, she was truly melancholy. Alas! Who would not have felt such misfortunes? But after deploring her father's ruin, could she do better than resume her former gaiety, make up her mind to the position she was placed in, and forget a world which she and her family had found so ungrateful, and the friendship of which she was so fully persuaded was not to be relied upon in the time of adversity? Anxious to console herself and her brothers by her amiable disposition and sprightliness, there was nothing she did not do to amuse them. The merchant had spared no cost in her education, nor in that of her sisters. At this sad period, she derived all the advantage from it she desired, as she could play exceedingly well upon various instruments, and sing to them charmingly. She asked her sisters to follow her example, but her cheerfulness and patience only made them more miserable. These girls, who were so inconsolable in their ill fortune, thought their youngest sister showed a poor and mean spirit, and even silliness, to be so merry in the state it had pleased Providence to reduce them to. "How happy she is," said the eldest. "She was intended for such coarse occupations. With such low notions, what would she have done in the world?" Such remarks were unjust. This young person was much more fitted to shine in society than either of them. She was a perfectly beautiful young creature. Her good temper rendered her adorable. A generous and tender heart was visible in all her words and actions, quite as much alive to the reverses that had just overwhelmed her family as either of her sisters. By strength of mind, which is not common in her sex, she concealed her sorrow and rose superior to her misfortunes. So much firmness was considered to be insensibility, but one can easily appeal from a judgment pronounced by jealousy. Every intelligent person who saw her in her true light was eager to give her the preference over her sisters. In the midst of her greatest splendor, although distinguished by her merit, she was so handsome that she was called the Beauty. I love that just because it's in the title. Like they literally started calling this girl the Beauty. Could you imagine being named the Beauty? Like that's just hilarious to me. I don't know why. It's like being called the Rock, I guess. I'm gonna start calling her the Rock from now on. Known by this name only, what more was required to increase the jealousy and hatred of her sisters? Her charms and the general esteem in which she was held might have induced her to hope for a much more advantageous establishment than her sisters. But feeling only for her father's misfortunes, far from retarding his departure from a city in which she had enjoyed so much pleasure, she did all she could to expedite it. This young girl was as contented in their solitude as she had been in the midst of the world. To amuse herself in her hours of relaxation, she would dress her hair with flowers, and like the shepherdesses of former times, forgetting in her rural life that all that she had most gratified her in the height of opulence, every day brought to her some new, innocent pleasure. And that's the end of chapter 1. So, in my next video, we'll read chapter 2. It's a lot longer than this first chapter was. So, the next video will be longer, but I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you come back for chapter 2 because it's actually a really good story. And if you just don't like the sound of my voice, but you still want to read the story, I hope you give it a chance and buy it. I got mine off of Amazon. So, that was the beginning of